Great. Good morning, everybody. It's really good to welcome you here today to the 13th webinar from the ENRICH in China network. We'd like to welcome you on this lovely sunny day that we've got here in Germany. I hope it's sunny with you wherever you are too. Today we're going to be talking about China's path to industrialized modernity. Our colleague Thomas Heine from the China-Baden Business Company will be talking to you to give you some information, background knowledge, and some really informative data around how China has got to the place it is now and what is the path moving forwards. But first, I say this. Yes, there we go. So the agenda for today. First of all, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who ENRICH in China are. Then I'll hand over to Thomas to talk about China's path to industrial modernity. Then there will be some information from Vasco about the upcoming activities from ENRICH in China. And then we'll have a question and answer section at the end. So if you are listening in and you have any questions that you'd like to pose to Thomas or to myself or to Vasco, do feel free to add that into the chat section of the webinar, and we will put those towards Thomas or the relevant person at the end. So do feel free to engage at that point. So first of all, my name is Blakemore. I'm from the Steinbeis 2i GmbH in Germany, and we are a project partner within the ENRICH in China project. It's an EU project, as you can see on the screen at the moment. It's a network of European organization and China-based centers designed to support European science, tech and innovation companies who are looking to collaborate with China. So we are designed to support people in not only being able to collaborate and finding the right partners, finding the right locations, but also helping them to succeed by giving them the right tools and the right information to enable them to access projects and even locate in the country successfully. In terms, there we go. In terms of why we are here, we're here to, as I said, to help you. So if you are a European science, tech, or innovation company, we are specifically here to support you in accessing China. We can do that through a number of different processes. We have created a pipeline which supports you as you move towards China. So we can help you to enhance your knowledge, and that is through webinars like today, so that you have more knowledge on China and the processes, the place, the cultures, to enable you to better connect, but also to equip yourself with trainings, with further knowledge and skills, as well as then establishing your strategy. So that might be creating a new international strategy or a science, tech or innovation strategy, or even a specific China strategy in terms of the location and the different sectors that you should be working with. We also then help you to engage. We offer missions, we offer events, we offer different activities within China and within the EU to help you to meet people and to understand how to build those relationships that are going to ensure your success. And finally, expanding your reach. So we ensure that when you get to China, that you have the right localization guidance and support, that you can connect into the right people on the ground and get access to the right support, knowledge, funding even, that you need for your organization. What that consists of, so we can offer landscape analysis, feasibility studies, technology watch, things like that within the Enhance Your Knowledge. So various different support options just to help you to get your grounding and understand your journey. Then with the strategy, we can offer you a variety of different strategy supports, tech transfer, for example, due diligence. That's very important when working with China, but also accessing funding. We can help you with applications and planning for that. In terms of equipping yourself, we offer short courses, we offer workshops, webinars like we've got today. We are currently working on some new training services, so do watch out on our website. We will be releasing some new training packs in the next few weeks, which would be great. And then we have actually got a new mission to China, which is coming up in April. That is a healthcare focused mission going out specifically to Suzhou and Beijing, I believe it is. But I think Vasco will talk to you more about this later. But we are organising missions regularly just to make sure that you have those right connections on the ground in China. And finally, with our soft landing zones, we have 4 currently, which Vasco will tell you about later. But these 4 soft landing zones are distributed across China to help you engage into the China economy. And we have opened recently a new call for new soft landing zones. So we will hopefully expand that number within this year, so you'll have even more support on the ground when you need it. And all of those soft landing zones go through our own approval process, so we know that those people have the right services and the right support for you when you get there. So I'm Faith Blakemore. I'm from Steinbeis GmbH. We deal with tech transfer, we deal with innovation management and supporting European businesses either in Europe or moving outside into third countries such as China. Our colleague today, Thomas Heine from the China-Baden Business Development Company, will be speaking to you. So he's very well informed, as you can see from his brief CV there. He's got a lot of knowledge and he will be bringing that today to help inform you. And our colleague Vasco as well is speaking to you. He's from SPI in Porto. They are also one of our project partners in ENRICH. So he will be talking to you later about the project and what's coming up. So at this point, when the slide decides to move forwards, which it's not, I think, this is moving forward slowly on the next slide. Vasco or Thomas, if you are in charge now, I don't seem to have control over the screen anymore. But if we could move on to the next slide, then we can start the presentation.
I think.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you very much, Faith. Thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. Hello from Baden-Baden, Germany. It's my pleasure to be here to speak about China's path to industrialized modernity. I will try to. Is that too quick? One moment. Go back one slide. Here we go. I will try to draw the big lines why China and give answers and create questions on why China is doing what it is doing and how China is doing what it is doing. I will try to be very strict on time, and some slides are very detailed. These are meant for you also as takeaways from today's seminar. Well, it's been a fantastic growth story, especially if you consider, next slide, how on a very low basis it all started with a very strict state planning under Mao Zedong, with humanitarian catastrophes and also with very severe impact on China's elite during the Cultural Revolution. This phase, this planned economy phase, is very closely related to Mao Zedong, and after him it was evident that China's economy had to be reorganized from the very start. And this phase, the reform and opening phase, is closely related to the name of Deng. And he decided to focus on export of low-value manufacturing goods based on extensive use of labor. You can say factor-driven, cheap labor, cheap capital. So a lot of infrastructure, big companies came into existence. And the know-how for production was more imitation than creation of own knowledge, leading also to a strategic dependence on foreign technology when it comes to producing. About 2008, all these positive effects came to a slowdown, and mainly due to the rising wages in China. And this means an economy has lost its competitive edge, facing the danger of a middle income trap, which means there are countries even more cheaper than you are, Laos, Vietnam, and there are countries above you in the value chain which can do things even better and more competitive. So the only way is up, so to say, and to create and invest heavily into science and technology. So this new phase with the well-known name Made in China 2025 is closely related to Mr. Xi, and he's got the very big task now to create a new innovation-driven growth model. So Mao Zedong Deng Xiaoping and Xi Jinping very much facing the same amount of huge tasks to do. Next slide. Well, before we go into the new phase, I would like to assess the old and successful economic growth path. It has been a great success. China made huge trade surplus. It attracted lots of foreign direct investment into China. China has the world's largest reserves, and China claimed its stake in the world GDP. So it's been a very, very successful model for organizing and creating economic growth. And this, of course, is also very appealing for emerging economies, for example, in Africa. Well, all these success also came at costs. Some troubles changing the slide. Now we go. Because this growth model was based on cheap labor, cheap capital, and was maximization of resource productivity, and with a dose of liberalization. And this came also to an end. And you can see a growth paradigm is outdated when high social and ecological costs are rising. I just want to give you one indicator, the PM 2.5 air pollution indicator, which indicates there is high social and ecological costs. Also overcapacities. Sometimes China is dealing with zombie factories, and I just mentioned rising wages, which leading to the increased risk of facing a middle income trap. All this combined with a weak tech base due to imitation and importation of technology rather than own indigenous creation of innovation. You can see this from IPR royalties you pay or receive. And in this case, China is paying a lot of royalties for IPR. So this means tech base is still quite weak. Well, from a systemic point of view, you can see, or you organize an economy very strictly state controlled. And this is more, in case of China, the legacy of Mao Zedong. And or you can organize it the way you use your resources. And China decided to go for a resource productivity approach, factor-driven, cheap, extensive use of labor, extensive use of capital, which is, you can say, the legacy of Deng Xiaoping. And now Mr. Xi, he has somehow go up the value chain and try to create an industry, an economic growth model based on innovation. And there is no golden rule, but it seems that a more liberal organization of an economy in combination with a efficient use of resource could be a very good fit, a very good model for creating innovation-driven growth. So we will see how China is going and managing this new step up in its economy. So as I said, there is no golden rule. We will closely follow how China is managing this. Well, I just mentioned the big topic is Made in China 2025. The very key is to modernize the innovation system from made to created in China. This entails systematic automatization, the increase of resource efficiency to increase efficient production. It entails massive investments into science, technology, innovation. Human resource is the key. Also, the improvement of IPR, intellectual property right protection, for SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. It includes international partnerships. This is, I think, also why we are here today. It focuses on strategic industries, and it has also innovation competence centers called Smart Production Integrated Value Chain Centers. So you can see from the name, it's smart, it's production, and it's integrated over value chains. These are the key ideas formulated by Mr. Chairman Xi, and he wants to make China it is a great country, into a strong, so more from quantity into quality. That is now the big task to do. Well, the very engine room, the thing, that place where all this takes place is the innovation system. So the interaction of scientific area, universities, institutes, state actors, administration, and of course companies. This is where, at least as we know it so far, new product ideas exist, are created through exchange, application, through transfer of knowledge. So this is really it. This is, I would like to refer to as the engine room for the new innovation-driven growth model. China has very high expectations to that system. They want to catch up with Japan, USA, and Germany by 2049. They want to increase largely the input factors, which means the investment into the system. It's like the R&D expenditures measured on GDP, which shall be reaching 2.5% by 2020. Companies also shall invest more. They shall double their own R&D expenditures into the manufacturing area. They want to decrease dependency on imported components, so they must increase domestically manufactured components. And China would like to have a very high ranking when it comes to patents and publications, which are the classical output factor, how you can measure innovation. China is formulating this strategy very, very selectively. They put focus on 10 strategic industries: IT, aerospace, robotic, biotech, medicine, and they focus on SOE, state-owned enterprises. They want them to become global players. I think in Europe right now, we just had all the same discussion with Siemens and Alstom. Now it's really somehow becoming on vogue and necessary to form global players, and China is putting a focus on SOEs for forming global players. Well, one level beneath, or the basic idea of industry of Made in China 2025 is the Industry 4.0 paradigm, which means a new dimension of networking, integration of industrial manufacturing. Its value chains largely control themselves without human intervention. It shall lead to more efficient, effective use of resources. And in the very end, again, it must and shall raise productivity. As Mr. Lee, Premier Lee, said, he wants to have growth machines, knowledge-intensive industries, we just heard, selective industries, knowledge-intensive industries with responsive, intelligent manufacturing processes. But on the other hand, this is pretty much the opposite what China has been doing under Deng Xiaoping in the factor-driven economic growth model, which is cheap labor, cheap capital, flooding world markets. So now there's a systematic change to be done, and this is very complex and difficult. It's especially if you have overcapacities, if you want to decrease labor force, it means layoff and social unrest. So it's a very sensitive and sensible topic. And on top, you cannot catch up and learn. This is very new. So you need to try and error, mix and reform. So this is a very complex matter. On top, the world has changed. Corporations integrate their value chains globally. They cooperate over spatial and temporal boundaries, using especially or exactly this Industry 0.4 technology. So this is, again, as Mr. Lee put it positively, a huge chance to increase productivity. On the other hand, it's a huge danger for China because industries can move away very quickly too, to Laos, to Vietnam. So then China would then face the fear or the danger of the early deindustrialization phenomenon. There are industry parks in South China, they're empty, swept empty, because these low value product manufacturing bases, they wandered down south towards Laos, for example. So China is in a very, very, very under time pressure, so to say, to move up to the left towards R&D, branding, design, and to move up to the right in that chart, distribution, marketing, sales, and after-sales service to increase the value of its products. And China, again, very amazing, very high and strong strategic capability, already thought up the plan, which means to seek global markets and assets. Meaning asset means technology, M&A, for example, in Europe or in high-tech countries to buy technology or to buy companies, to enforce that tech base. On the other hand, to create new markets, which is seeking markets, for example, in Africa. And on top, all these ideas, they need infrastructure. So I would personally put in the Belt and Road Initiative as the backbone of this, or the infrastructure for this big plan. So China is really realizing the necessity of stepping up, and also is taking all means to achieve this big goal, because again, here middle income trap, which means losing competitive edge of an economy and stagnation as a result. So this is failure is not an option. So China is under high pressure and dedicating a lot of effort to that. When checking in Chinese literature also a little bit, innovation system always has a very regional approach to it. It happens in a region, it happens in a cluster. So in China, in the core of this chart, you see old industries and new industries shall be connected, which is Industry 4.0, and everything surrounding that, micro, micro, strategy, planning, policy, it's all for that, supporting the change of industry or the modernization, the systematization of existing production bases. So it's really core. You see, it's really core. This is, again, if you want so, the engine for innovation-driven growth, which is very, very necessary. Well, in these clusters, in this people work, and this is, I think, very crucial to this new step, to the step up of China's economy, human capital as the crucial resource in a global knowledge economy. It's slightly different than capital or than cheap labor because it needs to be trained. It's not so it's not a classical production factor just put in and works. No, it needs training in the field of high tech universities and science, in the field of production, vocational training, which is in Germany or Switzerland, very elaborated dual system. So this is very key for training the workforce in order to enabling them for a very high quality production. On top, there's technical expertise, and this technical expertise must be complemented by social personal skills. You need to be able to unfold your knowledge through discourse and discussion. So this must be learned. So this is so just on your backbone before we go further and see how this system actually performs, which is being planned. That human resource, to my understanding, to my feeling or understanding, plays a very crucial role in the succeeding of China's new step up. Well, just mentioned performing. How is this system performing? Well, usually it's very tough to measure innovation. Common practice is you see what's going in, input factors. I just mentioned R&D expenditure, R&D spending, human capital, students, workers, and you measure what's going out, patents and publications. Here, I would like to stick to that procedure. And you see, the mentioned goal of raising the GDP share, which goes into R&D, is going to be easily reached to 2.5% by 2020. And also millions of students graduating from universities. There's a huge brain force available. This is no doubt China has huge advantages and necessary resource available at hand. Well, now what is coming out of it? Patents. Why patents? Patents tells you a little bit of the innovation capability of a country, the capacity, also how much knowledge of a country is codified. And it shows you the strategic possibilities a country has to eliminate potential competitors. First mover advantage, you got it first, you can commercialize it, and China painfully realized how much it costs if you are a second mover, if you pay to the one who moved first. So of course, China has a very strong interest in becoming a global leader in patent applications. You see here, already in pure figures, now we're talking quantity of patents, China has already raised almost 50% of world share when it comes to patent application in 2017. And if you put it in a more picturesque way, just the curve is just going up straight. Well, these are quantitative thinking. Now, I think it's very important to see the quality. First, quality, there's two ways of assessing it. One is in what sectors, the sectoral consideration, and the other one is also a kind of international consideration. First, sectoral, in what areas is China very putting a strong emphasis on patent application? And we've seen Made in China 2025 has a very selective industry approach. They want to be first in certain industry, and this mirrors if you take a look at R&D intensive industries and basic technology for Industry 4.0. They are a very growth machine-like industries, and here China already has equaled with Germany or surpassed Germany in patent applications. Well, in general, selective approach, growth machines, and growth machines I just mentioned are R&D intensive industries. An R&D intensive industry is an industry sector in which at least 3% of turnover is reinvested into R&D. You speak of high quality. I put a footnote here. You speak of high value technology. If about 3 to 9% of an industry sector is turnover of an industry is reinvested into R&D, and you speak of cutting edge or high technology, if more than 9% of an industry sector is of the turnover of an industry sector is reinvested into R&D. And let us take a look at this cutting edge, because China wants to be first, it wants to be best, and here obviously a strong indicator that China is very well on its way in implementing a top-notch strategy to become very first mover in this very important technology of Industry 4.0, disproportionately larger than, for example, Germany. I mentioned the other section of technology, like the classical machine building, car production. This is high value technology, 3 to 9% of an industry sector reinvested into R&D. Here, Germany, classical high-tech production nation, is clearly in the lead, and China is neglecting, you could say maybe, that field at the moment, because the future is 4.0. Why bother with 3.0? Well, another one, a very strong indicator of a quality of a patent is its international consideration. If you assess a high commercial value to a patent, then you're willing to take extra effort and costs to apply, to register that patent also abroad. And there is the strictest indicator is triadic patent families, which means you simultaneously apply a patent in Japan, in Europe, and USA. When it comes to that kind of consideration, you can see the quantities, the numbers slightly differ. China is going back on a lower level, and in the lead, United States and Japan. So this means the commercial value of the patents at the moment registered in China maybe are not as valuable. That makes sense to go all the way to registration. It means the material checking process, its costs and effort. And last but not least, I mentioned China made experience how much they had to pay, and still in the Huawei, for example, a lot of high-tech ICT companies still pay a lot of royalties for using foreign components. And this is painful for China, and they want to get out of this sling, and they want to be first mover. They want to have patents in relevant future technologies and to be able to receive more than to pay for royalties deriving out of usage of intellectual property. Second output, we talked patents. We had patents right now. The second one is publications. What do the scientists produce, so to say? And also here, there's a study between 2006 and 2016. China's share of publications in the Web of Science grew substantially and is now only second to the US. So also, again, in terms of quantity, a huge success and effort, and China's it's on the surface, it's on the very top notch, or became a very high productive scientific nation. Well, let's take a look again into a qualitative perspective. Again, sectoral consideration. Where is China publishing? Again, it's usually sectors which are very close or related to Industry 4.0, and social science, which is very important also to assess social and ecological costs. Medicine is underrepresented, whereas, for example, in the US, also a very strong high-tech country, medicine and social science are leading, very strong. So this means there might be also the possibility that is a little bit too one-sided at the moment. But of course, if you have a very clear sectoral focused view on high-tech cutting-edge technology and you have limited resources, you have to choose. So China chose this way. When it comes to publications, you can also see in what publication, what magazines is actually published. So the international alignment, which gives you an idea how well, what is the reputation of a magazine internationally. If you take a look at this, then China's publication activity, so to say, is underrepresented. That means below average. They usually publish in internationally less well-known magazines or publications. But again, here's a quantity part to it. In these internationally less reputed publications, they are cited a lot. So in that magazine, a country's publishes in one magazine, and then it's cited more or less than other countries' authors in that same magazine. It's called a scientific regard. Here, China is already on the way up. So again, quantity, yes, but also a little bit of a let's say lower value magazine, but then again a lot of it. Well, to sum up the performance after planning, we talked about performing. What is the system really performing? Again, you see a very on a meta level. You can say you can use a global innovation index, which gives you about 80 indicators, explore a broad vision of innovation, including political environment, education, infrastructure, and business sophistication. You can see here, China is definitely stepping up the ladder. If you see the figures from 2016, 25, 22nd place, have 17th place. So definitely it's going up. In pure numbers of input into that system, into that engine room, into that innovation system, China is leading. R&D spending, human capital, graduates going into that system. But again, also basic research is a little underrepresented. It goes really very much into cutting edge technology, top notch. Well, when it comes to output, I would like to stress here that quantitative planning, top down, from Mr. Xi, for example, I think China is obliged or shall produce at least 2 million patents a year. This is pure planning. It has nothing to do with R&D at the very grassroots. So there is distortions and misallocations of fundings and distorting effects coming out of a quantitative planning approach. So also to sum up that in the very end, it's the way to go from made to created in China. Also the new technologies which are invented, then to transfer them into the companies, into the production levels, it's going to be a way. It's going to be difficult. It needs training of the people, and also other aspects, data security norms and standards. So at the moment, I would say that China's tech base, of course, got strengthened, became stronger, but still a lot of it was managed by state support and more M&A and international technology cooperation rather than own indigenous innovation. And then last but not least, I would strengthen that still the IPR protection creates questions and is a very strong impediment for investment into innovation. This is not only key and relevant to foreign players, but as we have seen, Mr. Xi stressed the IPR protection on SME in China, because they have limited resources, and if they invest into innovation, you must have the possibility to have it protected in order to commercialize it. And so this is still a big problem to my understanding. Well, what can we learn, or what is the implication? Obviously, this engine room, the innovation system, is a very complex thing. I would like to refer in this closing remarks later on to innovation competence, which means to generate new knowledge, to exchange, to concretize it in discourse, to transfer it from science into industry, to optimize processes when it's been transferred in the industry, and to distribute and market it worldwide. This is a very, very strong competence. And obviously, the system at the moment has problem in implementing and performing it to the very extent Mr. Xi wants it to perform. Well, university level, maybe some traditional factors come into play, which is a strict division of theory and praxis. Also, I just mentioned the misallocation problem, or the distorting effect of pure quantitative planning plus political influence. Also, the way maybe in Asia or China is teaching is being produced and done in a more confrontative way and in a less interactive way. When it comes to state actors, also again, we have seen top-notch in all fields shall be reached. So there's a very elitarian research approach with little effect in the width which is, as a society, we talk about, we just heard about social cost. As a society, we have the width. We not only have the egalitarian level. And last but not very least, if there is lack of trust or hesitating, or if you treat human resource still the way you treat human resource out of the Deng area as a pure productive factor, extensive use of labor, then you're not willing, or you maybe not be able to willing to make the step and see the human resource as a crucial resource which needs to be trained. And also if they have weak institution, weak judicial system, or weak protection of IPR, as a company, especially as a SME, as a private company, small company, you are hesitating to invest into innovation because you have no means to protect it and to commercialize it. Maybe this fear is especially strong among private companies, since the SOEs, the state-owned companies here in that area is very important, have strong relations with state actors. Yeah, so the collusion is a word which is to be used cautiously, but there is a strong interaction between companies, state-owned companies, and state actors, of course, and the private companies, the entrepreneurs, which to our theory are the key drivers for innovation. They have disadvantages over the big ones, which are usually slower in creating new things because they are more settled. Well, overall, it's a difficult environment for entrepreneurial initiatives, especially for this new task. It's very difficult because Industry 4.0 demands interactive, interdisciplinary, application-driven, open, lively networks, which is really grassroots thinking, try and error, and open and flexibility. So this is at the moment maybe hindering the existing status in China, hindering to make a very broad approach and progress in that direction in creating innovation-driven growth. Well, let me just also say a few words about knowledge. And knowledge actually is a perfect production factor. It's zero emission, and it's inexhaustible, and it multiplies through exchange and application. So exchanging knowledge realizes itself. You bring people together with good ideas, something happens. China, again, very strong, and this is amazing, reacted and with a very strong strategic capability and forming these new ecosystems. When you go to Beijing, Shenzhen, it's all there. Old industry, new industry. If you remember the chart, the Chinese chart, it's at the very core, the clusters. This shall give impetus. This shall give encouraging entrepreneurship, innovation, because we believe, and history at least proved, that best innovation and the strongest innovation power comes from the entrepreneurial level. But again, and here I do see question marks. The key questions to my understanding remains: is China willing and able to integrate that essential nature of knowledge into its strategy 2025? Because in the very end, essentially and eventually, the control monopoly of Chinese Communist Party is at stake. So here is my closing remarks for today, and I would like to give it back to Vasco, and I thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. That was a very interesting overview, very interesting background to where China has come from and where it's going to. And also, I mean, I was very interested to hear about what seems to be the development path, but then the opportunities that are coming out for EU organisations. So I can see there are some potential problems still in the IPR section and trying to overcome those issues, but actually also seeing their need, as you've just said, of knowledge, and the fact that this knowledge is really important, and therefore the idea of collaboration, the idea of working together can be beneficial for both sides, I suppose, which is really interesting for the European side of things. So yeah, that was fascinating. Thank you very much, Thomas. So I'm going to hand over at this point to Vasco, and Vasco is going to be able to give us a bit more information, as well as field any of the questions that you've got for him. So Vasco, over to you.
Thank you very much, Faith, and thank you once again, Thomas, for the great presentations. I think we all learned a lot today, and now it will be my quick turn to make a short presentation on the upcoming activities of ENRICH in China. I already see that we have a couple of questions, so I just reinforce that you keep on making them until the end, and we will have a dedicated section to answer your questions. So, following what Faith already has presented on what is ENRICH in China and what is the current service portfolio that we offer, I would like to focus on two major services that we are currently really enhancing and trying to reach out to the clients. The first one is our training packs. We have been disseminating through our social networks and by email our training packs for 2019. These the training packs are more or less and mostly targeted to multipliers, would be business associations, networks, universities, but also end users such as companies or other private entities or even public entities which would like to provide training services to their employees or associates and members. So basically, ENRICH in China provides two sets of trainings. This includes workshops and webinars. Under the workshops, we can provide tailor-made topic trainings. We have a simple list of topics here, which would generally be requested. But we can also specify the needs to the clients and give targeted trainings towards their needs. The workshops could go from 1 day to 2 to 3 days, consecutive days. So this would be possible under our workshop program. And webinars, as you can see, we in this current webinar we can also organize a specific webinar target to your organization and to your associates or members or any stakeholders that would be interested in receiving these trainings. So as you can see here, you have just a short list of topics which we can provide training, such as Horizon 2020 and more information on the co-funding mechanism with China. We can also give an introduction to the Chinese STI landscape or give further information on the technology transfer towards China. Also, Industry 4.0, as we have been hearing, is also a training topic, and we also have dedicated experts within the ENRICH in China network and consortium to provide these trainings. In case you want to receive our training, in case you have not received our training pack and you would like to see more about this, you can send us an email, which I will be showing it at the end of the presentation, and we will be glad to send it to you. The other service which I would like to mention is the soft landings zones. As Faith already mentioned, we currently have certified 4 organizations based in China which provide soft landing and co-working services to European customers. Basically, these organizations currently located in Beijing, Shijiazhuang, Suzhou, and Shanghai. These are certified organizations by ENRICH in China that can provide top-notch and tailor-made services to European clients that are willing to make first establishment in the Chinese market. So basically, if you access the link you have currently on your screen, you would have a more detailed description of each of the organizations, and this would give you more concrete information on what these soft landing zones can provide to you. We know that the first contact with China is not easy, and trying to really engage with trustworthy partners in China and in order to foster your business is not always easy. So we try to simplify this for you by certifying these organizations, which we know that can provide top quality services. Also, Faith mentioned in her presentation, and I will also briefly mention further on in my presentation that ENRICH in China will very soon launch another call for soft landing zones. So in this case, this call would be for organizations, European or Chinese organizations that have offices and are based in China, that are interested to apply to be one of these soft landing zones in order to receive European customers. We will soon have a call for applications for these positions. and they will of course be disseminated through our channels. We currently are receiving expressions of interest from European customers that are willing to establish to China, and I'll also give more information further on. Just briefly mentioning some of our past activities, we have during 2018 was a very busy year, and we have organized more than 30 trainings, more than 6 events, including 4 matchmaking tours to China. And this is just an example of the last one we did in 2018. This was basically a tour from November 11th to 16th that went through Suzhou, Wuxi, and Shenzhen. This mission counted with the participation of more than 20 European stakeholders. And we had, and the participants had a chance to participate in important seminars and conferences in all 3 cities. In this case, we would like to highlight the China High Tech Fair in Shenzhen that took place more towards the end of the tour, and the participants had the chance to have a free entrance to this fair, and also have B2B meetings with Chinese stakeholders, and also with also both from private companies and also governmental representatives. More specifically, we would like to highlight a twice service we provided to the Lithuanian delegation. This one is just an example of the last one we provided. So basically, after our matchmaking tour to China, which some of these participants attended, we had a tailor-made consultancy service to the Lithuanian delegation, which was represented by MITA, which counted with more than 20 people from various sectors of activity. And basically, this was a service that was provided, which included business visits to leading STI Chinese organizations such as BID, Royal, and basically we have organized individual meetings for these organizations. These were basically startups and SMEs, and they had also the chance to pitch their organization to investors and to other leading representatives. So this is also something that can be organized for your organization or for a group of organizations in China. Talking now about the upcoming activities, we are organizing another tour, which following the other ones will be surely successful. In this case, will be very sectorial focused. In this case, in the healthcare sector. This tour will take place between April 8th and 13th, and will go through Beijing and Wuxi in China. Similarly to the other organizations, this includes the participation in high-level conferences in both cities, which are mentioned in below in blue, as you can see in the screen, and also the chance to visit locally organizations in both cities that are related to the healthcare sector, and also meet high-level representatives both from the EU side and the Chinese local governments. Talking specifically about the conferences, the participants will have the chance to access for free in the Taihu Life Science and Healthcare Forum, which takes place in Wuxi. This is a major event in China that connects European and Chinese stakeholders and fosters the interaction and exchange of knowledge between the 2 regions, focused on the healthcare sector. Regarding the Nordic Edge China conference, this is located in Beijing, and the participants, and this forum is focused on smart mobility and also health sector. It has 2 components, and it also has a space for exhibition and organizations who want to exhibit their products, technology, and also B2B sessions and matchmaking sections dedicated for European organizations to connect with Chinese stakeholders. Basically summarizing some of what I have presented and further activities we have. As I mentioned, we will have soon in March a call for applications for soft landing zones, so organizations who want to become soft landing zone certified by ENRICH in China and receive European organizations in their network, and we will also have in March a call for applications for service providers and members. Further information will come on this, so you can stay tuned in our website to receive more information. On March 20, we will have a webinar focused on the IPR protection in China related with the healthcare sector. This is more or less a briefing webinar before our matchmaking tour, and this will give you all the insights on the IPR protection you need to have in mind regarding medical devices and other science, healthcare and science related intellectual property. Without the defined date, but it will be on the second quarter of 2019. We will have a sectorial report focused on the healthcare sector that will be produced by one of our project partners, Tsinghua University. And we already have, I think Faith already mentioned, we already have 3 reports produced by ENRICH in China. They are in our website, and you can easily access them. As already mentioned, we have webinars organized monthly, and you can check on our website for the latest updates on this. And we will be changing the topic every month, so stay tuned. Okay, so basically this is our website address and email address, which I previously mentioned, which you can contact us to ask any further question or receive any further information. In case you want to be included in our contact list to receive all the latest news and newsletters from ENRICH in China, please send us an email and we will include you for sure. These are our physical addresses from our locations in China, and also the address of our physical office in Europe, which is based in Brussels, and also in all the social networks. You can follow us by just searching us at ENRICH in China, and you can have all the access to our social media pages. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you again to Thomas for his kind participation and great presentation, and also Faith for all the moderation. I see that we now have a couple of questions. If you just give me 1 second, I will try to read them out to the speakers. So I see that we have some questions. I will just start by presenting by answering some of the quick ones. Basically, are the presentations going to be available? Yes, these will be sent by email after the webinar is provided, and we will also have, I don't think we have a question on that, but we will also have the recording of the webinar available on our YouTube channel, which will later be available in our website. I have a question here for Thomas, if I may. So basically, we have a question which says, where do you see the best cooperation opportunities for European countries whose innovation power may be more or less on the same level as in China nowadays?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting question. I would say I would first of all go on a corporation level, entrepreneur level, and on entrepreneur level, I do see that there's 2 advantages on each side which can be exchanged. First, for example, here in Baden-Baden, Karlsruhe area, we have a very strong cluster organization, a very elaborated regional innovation system. And the Chinese entrepreneurs do have, especially the SMEs, they do have facing big troubles in creating innovation processes to exchange with universities and stakeholders or state actors. So for them, I would say to have them here, come here to also experience and develop products here in our elaborated innovation system, to make them become ambassadors, so to say, entrepreneurial ambassadors, and go back and improve the system there. On the other hand, China has leading cutting-edge technology, and when it comes, for example, in the big data area, so German or let's say European startups sometimes maybe have disadvantages when it comes to business model simulation, which are based on big data and which is maybe not available in Europe. So for business model simulation, especially database business models, I strongly recommend to hook up and to cooperate with Chinese tech bases and ecosystems, because again here, maybe also the legacy of the past, resource productivity, which is maximizing on data. These data are available in China, and why not use them at least for modeling and simulation to testing business models and come back here and implement. So I think on an entrepreneurial level, I do see not much big problems in cooperation, and it's mutual, very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for your answer and for being so clear. I have here another question which is quite specific, and for that reason, I may need to read all of it since it has some context behind it. So Thomas, keep up with me. So basically, it says the following: we see at our state-owned enterprises companies that they are forced to buy components for some complex electronic machines from Chinese companies. They are usually stating that they have to buy at least 80% of components from Chinese enterprises. Is this because of this new strategy you were talking about during the webinar?
This is a complex question. I might not be perfectly correct, able to answer. Definitely local content always have been a strategy of China to support local industry, and especially big SOEs. And I just mentioned the reduction of components bought internationally. So the improvement or the increase of components bought nationally is a key feature. So I think without being able to go into more details for this answer, that this is a classical strategic way, a non-tariff barrier also in a way, that China is forcing local content by having these components bought domestically. That is about how far I can go on that one.
Okay, perfect. Yes, we understand it was really specific. I think from the questions that we have here, we are done. I don't know if in the meantime Faith would have any question that would like to ask.
No specific question, so to speak, just very interesting presentation. It was really interesting to hear about the regional focus for China and how each of the different regions are focusing on certain areas. And I think we are reflecting this in the ENRICH soft landing zones, and just saying this is, going alongside what Thomas was saying, finding the right areas, finding the right partners, finding the right trustworthy people that you can do business with is really important. So making sure that you find the right connection points, such as ENRICH in China or somebody like Thomas, who can give you that advice and get you connected into the right people, is going to be really key to success. So that's kind of my take-home thing at the moment. But yeah, thank you very much, Thomas. Very interesting, and thank you, Vasco, for the questions as well. And thank you everyone for joining in. It was great to have you on board.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I would just like to say that in case there is any participant which would like to make any question later on and would like to have it answered, you are free to send us an email with your question, and we will make sure that our dedicated expert, in this case Thomas, if he is the targeted speaker to answer, we will make sure that the question reaches him, and we will try to get an answer to you. So feel free to contact us and ask any further question. So I think on that note we can finish off. Once again, thank you very much. Never enough to say it, and see you at the next webinar.